Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Daredevil number 191 and 192, and also the What If Academy edition of, well, I don't even know how to describe it, but you'll find out what's in it soon enough. So we're wrapping up Frank Miller's initial run on Daredevil and going slightly beyond it. But then we're going to jump back and look at this What If. The main story in this, taken from What If number 35, is just as the title says. And we'll check that out soon enough. So here's Daredevil 191. This is Frank Miller's last issue. And it's quite a swan song. It is an amazing issue of Daredevil. We have a solo Frank Miller cover here. We can already see the Ronin-style inking that he would bring to that comic when he moved to DC very soon after this. I believe this was the last thing he did at Marvel for a while. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. But look at this cross-hatching, so different. We definitely see the Ronin in the musculature, kind of manga influenced. So this is a very odd, interesting issue of Daredevil. It's called Roulette. Frank Miller writing and penciling for the first time in quite a while. He's just been doing rough layouts for Klaus Janson, and Terry Austin inking. And also Lynn Varley, colorist, who would be his future collaborator and, I think, wife, or at least partner, for a good amount of his life. Joe Rosen once again on lettering. So we start off, and all the captions, this is Daredevil's voice, talking about how this is a .38 caliber pistol. It's pretty much only good for killing. And we see Daredevil putting it to his forehead and pulling the trigger. So as you can see, this is classic Miller layouts with the vertical and the horizontal panels interplaying with each other. Really nice art. I think he knew this was his last issue, and he put a lot of work into it. But of course, a lot of that's Terry Austin, because Terry Austin always makes an artist look better. So we find out that Daredevil is at the hospital bed of Bullseye. I don't know how he's there, and no nurses are coming in. And but he's basically talking to Bullseye, I think just in his head, because Bullseye is completely paralyzed from their last battle. And he basically says, we're going to play a game of Russian roulette. And he clicks it. I'm sorry, he pulls the trigger right at Bullseye's face, and we hear it click. And of course, he brings up the fact that Bullseye murdered Elektra. Interesting panel here, the way he cuts it up. Even though it's just Daredevil's face, there's no motion involved. And he just cuts it up into these panels for the caption. Interesting too, this panel looks so much like Gene Colan to me. Somehow Miller plus Austin equals Gene Colan, at least in this panel. I love all this white space he uses in this, as if they're just floating in a void. So he tells Bullseye the reason why he's here. It's not really because he killed Elektra. That was months ago. So he tells him the story of how, as Matt Murdock, attorney at law, he was taking on this case. This guy's name is Hank Jurgens. He's been accused of embezzling from his company. He meets his son, Chucky. Chucky is obsessed with watching this VHS copy of Daredevil battling Bullseye from that great issue of Daredevil. Maybe it was, I don't know, 165 or something. Who knows? Who cares? He watches it over and over. The kid seems like he's a little off. Maybe he's on the spectrum or something. And the father is completely denying it. He's saying that it's a co-worker who's jealous of him rising to the top, getting the promotion. It's all lies and slander about him embezzling. And we have this dinner table scene where we see that this guy's kind of a domineering father. I notice, if you notice, Frank Miller doesn't have to say anything. The wife doesn't say a damn thing. She's barely there. She's almost like a ghost sitting at the end of the table. And the whole time, he's kind of berating his son. His son is kind of off in his own world, probably thinking of Daredevil and Bullseye. And he hands him the beats instead of the rolls, and the father's like, really tearing into him. Just like, answer your papa, boy. What's going on with you? And he tells, Hank tells Matt Murdock, he says, yeah, my boy thinks he likes to play it like he's Daredevil. And Chucky says, not playing, I am Daredevil. That's a really good panel. Look at that kid's face. Once again, I guess that does look like Gene Colan, too. So, of course, the father's pissed off. He's like, you embarrassed me in front of Mr. Murdock here. And this kid is very deferential to his father. He's been beaten down pretty much. He's like, sorry, Papa, I'm sorry. Guys, it's so weird. I just read this 2 hours ago. And it's totally reminding me of Gene Colan. A lot of panels, actually. I wonder if Terry Austin was doing that on purpose. So after dinner, Hank shows Matt his gun. He's just kind of showing it off. He's got a license for it and everything. Now, Daredevil tells Bullseye that the meeting Chucky really affected him. And he decided to, to give him a little thrill. So he shows up at his schoolyard. We see Chucky at school. He's telling all the kids, you're a Black Widow. And I'm Daredevil. And, let's play Daredevil. And all the kids are like, you're weird, Chucky. You're a freak. And then Daredevil shows up. And he gives him the ride of his life. I love these panels of him. Chucky on his shoulders. Seems a little endangering to a child. I don't know if this is very responsible. But he leaps around the city. Chucky's loving it. And he says, I got to get you back to school, Chucky. And when he says, he talks to Chucky about why he likes Daredevil so much. He says, when somebody gets in your way, you give it to him. Pow. Nobody tells you what to do. You're free. And this disturbs Matt, Daredevil. The game of roulette continues. Look at Bullseye here. He's barely cognizant of what's going on. He's in a coma. And this bothers Daredevil because he's like, he likes to think he's a do-gooder. He's stopping violence, but he realizes that Chucky admires him because he's good at violence and he gets what he wants. So now looking back, he realized he shouldn't have encouraged Chucky's fantasy. It was a mistake. So then the next day, Matt Murdock is going to meet Hank, the father. And he sees little Chucky, and Chucky's pretending to be Daredevil again. He says, I'm on the prowl. Judder is the name of that guy who's got the dirt on Hank Jensen about the embezzling. So in his mind, Chucky's like, I got to protect this good guy, i.e. his dad, from this Judder guy. I'm going to clear this innocent man. And Matt says, go home. And so he's so busy changing it to Daredevil because he sees Judder drive off. He doesn't notice Chucky hitches a ride in the back of the car. Cut back to the hospital. One more round of roulette. This is the fifth chamber. So now he points it at Bullseye's head. And he says, guess this is it, Bullseye. But I'm going to finish my story first. Judder drives to Central Park. Of course, Daredevil's there. And he sees him meet Hank Jensen. And basically, Judder is blackmailing him. And also, of course, Chucky's there because he hitched a ride. He's shocked to see his father isn't such a good guy. But Hank Jensen's not going to have this. He's not going to be blackmailed, so he pulls out his gun. He says, give me those papers or I'll blow your brains out. And right then, Chucky comes out and says, Papa? Another beautiful drawing. Very close, very Gene Colan. The father says, go home, boy. And Daredevil pops up and he says, what are you going to do, shoot your own child? He says, I'll shoot you. And then Daredevil even admits that he was cocky and angry. He took his time with Jurgens. And we see Daredevil, instead of just popping him one, he kind of brings him to the ground and really rubs it in. And Daredevil says, my third dumb move. And look at Chucky's face. He is just shattered. Hope you guys are noticing how beautiful this art is. I gotta say, guys, I can't, read all the captions. The quality of the writing is really good, especially considering it's a Marvel comic from 1983. Like, as if we already didn't know Frank Miller was the singular talent in mainstream comics. This is really... In fact, there's not many comics in Frank Miller's career where he writes this seriously. And let's be honest, it's just two guys in a hospital room and one of them is telling a story. No cosmic battles or big supervillain fights. Very mundane, but his writing is really crisp. And he comes from that hard-boiled school, so it's not flowery or anything, but it's really well written. So now Matt goes to check on little Chucky. He's really withdrawn into his fantasy world. His mom says that all he does is watch the tape now. And then we see, I don't think Matt hears this, Chucky saying, Papa's bad, or Daredevil wouldn't have hit him. And if Papa's bad, so am I. So I guess Hank Jurgens' trial cost his family every cent. So Matt Murdock agreed to pay for Chucky's psychotherapy. And everyone thought that it was over. And then one day at school, the kids teased him one too many times. And Chucky pulls a gun out and shoots the kid right in the arm. Luckily, the kid survived. And he tells Bullseye, we won't really know how Chucky is until he starts talking again. So Chucky's like, he's fucked. So now, Daredevil tells Bullseye, I keep asking myself, what made Chucky like he was? When I run around in my tights, am I showing people that good wins out, crime does not pay? Or am I showing them that any idiot with fists for brains can get his way if he's fast enough and mean enough? They can bully people into getting what he wants. Or am I to blame it all? Maybe it's people like you and Jurgens. Perhaps if Chucky had a dad like mine, and he starts thinking about his dad, and he just says, without my dad, I wouldn't have been Daredevil. He was a great man. He retells the from Daredevil #1 about how his father was supposed to throw a fight, but refused to out of love for his son and pride, because he saw Matt in the audience. And of course, it cost him, it earned him a bullet in the back from the mob. This is some really good art from Miller into Austin here. It's interesting, some of these Austin inks, I hate to say it, I see like Rob Liefeld. I think Rob Liefeld was reading this comic when he was a kid and taking notes. Of course, it's way better, it's used better, but I think he took the surface, the Terry Austin's like diagonal cross-hatching, and he really went to town with that shit. But of course, he's not nearly as talented as Terry Austin, so it didn't look as good. So then as he's telling the story, I love this beat here. He says, in all the years that have passed, I've held my dad's image before me, shining, untarnished. Silent panel. I'm a liar. My father was far from the best. But he tried. And then he tells this anecdote. Before, when he's a little kid, his dad made him promise never to fight. Don't end up like me, you gotta study. But one day these kids pushed him, and they ripped up this very expensive book, and Matt couldn't take it anymore. Look at that look on Matt's face. I wouldn't fuck with that kid. And he starts beating on these kids. He comes home with a bloody nose, and he's kind of proud. He's like, Dad, you should have seen it. I think I broke that one kid's nose. Of course, his dad is furious. He's drunk, though, too. He's like, I work my fingers to the bone so you can have a future. And you go and fight like a common dumbass. I'll hurt you all right. And he slapped Matt. I remember he's a boxer, so it probably hurt 10 times as much as when your dad hit you. And Matt runs off. He spends the night on the Brooklyn Bridge, realizing that even fathers could do bad things. how even dads need to obey the rules. By morning, his life course was set. He would become an attorney. That's the night he figured it out. Now we cut back to the hospital room for the big finish. Daredevil's still pointing the gun at Bullseye's face. And he basically says, this is why. You know, even though I've got you squarely in my sights, and it's very sweet to smell your fear, when it comes down to the final act of ending you. And look at this interesting effect. I think this is photocopies, or maybe it's Frank Miller and Terry Austin just drawing it over and over. But look how it almost gets distorted as if it was, blown up. Really effective. It really brings the intensity of the scene home. And Daredevil pulls the trigger. And then we go to the Dark Crystal realm. And the gun goes click. He says, my gun has no bullets. I guess we're stuck with each other, Bullseye. And that's how it ends. Fucking really good issue. Probably one of the best issues of Daredevil ever. Really good stuff. So now this is the post-Miller era. Number 192. And after this, my collecting of Daredevil gets a little spotty. Over the years, I realized, these issues aren't that great. I don't need to own them, forever. But I will, next time we will be looking at other post-Miller runs. And, excuse me a second. I gotta take care of this. I got a bloody nose, guys. I'm sorry. Ay. Glad that didn't fall in the comic. I would have cried right in front of you guys. So this is a kind of a special fill-in issue. As you can see by the crappy cover, it's Klaus Janson penciling and inking this whole issue, as well as coloring. And I gotta say, there's some bad art in here, guys. This is pretty early on in Klaus Janson's drawing career. Might be one of the first comics he ever penciled and inked. Because he's just been an inker for 8 years at this point. I mean, it definitely has that great Klaus Janson inking sheen. And this is a special issue because it really focuses on Ben Urich. And I love this character, Ben Urich, the reporter. So we see him on the rooftop of the Daily Bugle. One of his colleagues is saying, listen, I need you to take over the story. Jimmy Hughes has been in the pocket of the mob for decades. And Ben doesn't want to believe it. Jimmy Hughes was Ben's mentor when he was a young reporter. Taught him everything he knew. And he can't believe that he was in the pocket of the mob. He says, listen, I got some of the proof here, but you got to follow down these leads. It looks pretty damning. Ben's like, I don't think so. And he says, well, I can't finish the story. I'm sorry, I'm too chicken. Some shady character followed my daughter home from school for 20 blocks. I could take a hint. But he also knows that Ben is a fearless reporter and he'll take the bait. We see this gunman up in the Daily Bugle sign, and Daredevil shows up and knocks the gun out of his hand. Ben pushes his friend into the stairwell, and Daredevil fights this guy. He knocks him out. I'm sorry, he's pretending to be knocked out, but of course Daredevil can tell, and he says, who sent you? And the guy says, I don't know his name. And he's not lying. Ben comes out and says hi to Daredevil, basically. There's so many goony panels in here, like that one. Look at Daredevil's head there. It's really odd. But I mean, sometimes Daredevil looks great. Like, that's a great Daredevil right there. That's the thing with Janson. It's like heaven or hell with him. We're going to see some hell in here, guys. Believe me. I'm not exaggerating. So now we cut away to Ben Urich's apartment. This story's called Promises. Now, I haven't even told you the team. So Alan Brenner, it's the writer. Alan Brenner was a guy who wrote for TV, but every now and then he would do a comic here and there. A lot, usually for DC. He did a couple of Batman comics over the years. Just a few things scattered here and there. I guess he was a busy TV writer. His stuff was always a cut above all the other 70s comic writers and early 80s. This story is an example of it. It's got heart, It's not just like, oh, two guys beating each other up for 20 pages, like a lot of Marvel DC comics were at the time. But he always has like substantial characterization, and he's a decent writer, you know, especially in comics at the time. He's a damn good writer. So the captions are from the point of view of Ben Urich's wife. She woke up before Ben and is just lovingly looking at him, thinking, oh, this is the only time of the day I can actually just see him for 10 minutes and adore him, basically. So we realize she loves him very much. They live in some shitty apartment, though, and she's thinking about all the, you know, how it smells and the traffic sounds. And when she opens the silverware jar, there's roaches, and it's the last straw. She wigs out. She grabs a broom. It looks like she's destroying her cupboard. Ben wakes up and says, honey, what's the matter? And she's like, I just can't take it anymore. You don't know what it's like living in this fucking rat trap. And you never come home, and I'm always alone. And he says, honey, you know, I wish I could be home with you too. Sorry, guys, I had to take off my sweater. And we could tell that Ben loves her just as much as she loves him. He says, you know, honey, I think I'm coming down with a cold. I'm going to have to stay home sick and hang out with you all day. And he mentions how, you know, he knows his wife wants this so bad, wants another place for years. And he says, listen, honey, I'm going to take off today. This weekend, we'll go house hunting again. Maybe something will come up we can afford. Ben's pretty poor. He doesn't make a lot of money as a reporter. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to wipe my nose again. I'm so terrified of getting blood on this comic. So Daredevil goes to visit the DA, Maxine Lavender. I do like this one-page scene where he's just like, thinks he's Batman. He's like, hey, I need the files on this guy. And she's like, fuck you. You know, what else do you want? Do you want top secret files, security files? She's like, get the hell out of my office. I love that page. And so now we see Ben and his wife looking at a house. It's beautiful. It's in Westchester. And this real estate agent, I think his name's Farnham. And he kind of says like, hey, we can do some financing. I inherited these houses. I really want to get, you know, sell them. So I could work with you here. Maybe 10% down instead of 20. We might be able to swing this. I'll talk to my bank. And, you know, Ben's just thinking, we can barely pay 10. But when he sees how happy his wife is, she's just giggling like a schoolgirl. Look at that look at his face. That's so well done. That Jansen captures that perfectly. Just that. Okay, he's going to buy the house. That's all it takes is the joy of his wife. Okay, guys, here's what I was talking about earlier. So Daredevil is going to sneak into this old mob boss's house. He was like an accountant for the Cosa Nostra in the 60s. He figures this guy will have any files so they could blackmail people. So if they were paying off Jimmy Hughes, the reporter, he might find it here. He jumps the fence and this guard dog comes out. Guys, this is worse than a Steve Ditko drawn dog. Look at this dog. It looks like a dude in a dog suit on all fours. This is terrible. Oh my God. This is so terrible. I do like this little effect, which he, you know, since he's the penciler and the colorist and inker, he does this crazy, swirly, almost like time-lapse thing to show Daredevil flipping the dog over the fence without hurting him. And then that's a great Daredevil pose. Then he, you know, like I said, you never know what chance in every other panel. You never know what you're going to get. So he sneaks into the house, turns off the alarm system, and goes in the safe. And unfortunately, he does find evidence that Jimmy Hughes is crooked. Now he goes to visit Ben, startles his wife, and Ben is he's sad, but, you know, he's a good reporter. So he's like, well, this is definitely proof. Meanwhile, Barry Farnham, the real estate agent, calls up and says, it worked. The bank went for it. You got yourself a house. And the wife is fucking thrilled. And Ben is pretty freaking thrilled too, just because his wife is happy. That's all he cares about. He loves her so much. As Daredevil leaves, he hears them laughing. He's like, wow, I've never heard, you know, Ben Urich is usually just this cynical, cautious guy. He's never heard him sound joyous before. So now Ben goes to visit Jimmy Hughes, and he's retired. And he says, Jimmy, I'm sorry, I'm here for a statement. I'm not here for a social call. I love these panels of Ben's face. For all the shit I've been giving Klaus Janson, this expression really captures just like he doesn't want to do this at all. He loves this man, but he's just like, Jimmy, come on. You got to answer my questions. So Jimmy kind of fesses up. And I guess he became his daughter's husband, his son-in-law, was tied up in the mob. They were going to kill him. The mob said, hey, Jimmy, you kill this story for us that we don't like. We'll let your son-in-law live. And then little by little, they chipped away until he was deep in their pockets. They get in an argument where Ben kind of castigates him for selling out. And he's like, you don't know what it's like, fuck you. And then he even says, you killed that story on Randolph Cherry, the guy running for mayor, just to save your own hide. Remember that when Elektra was going to kill him in the movie theater? And Ben is kind of like, I guess you're kind of right. I also just wanted to point this out. That looks so Steve Ditko to me. And now we cut back. And once again, another great Ben Urich. He's just really good at drawing Ben Urich, that's for sure. And so basically Ben says, well, I'm going to print the story either way. The story's going to get printed. And he leaves. Now at the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, Matt is looking into this Farnham guy. The name sounded familiar. Turns out, Farnham mentioned that he got all of his real estate from his brother. His brother was the mass marauder who Daredevil killed, 100 issues ago. So apparently Barry, the brother, is kind of just as corrupt, ties to the mob. So Daredevil figures out what the hell's going on here. He breaks into Kingpin's office once again. I love this how Kingpin just says, I fail to understand, Daredevil, why you can't just simply make an appointment like everyone else. And he's like, cut the shit. He lays it down. He says, Ben Urich's yada, yada, yada. And Kingpin just admits it. It's like, hey, it's good to have insurance. Ben Urich has published a lot of stuff I don't like, and now he'll be in our pocket. And you guys, look how terribly he draws Kingpin. Look at this right here. He looks like one of the Peanuts characters. Like Charlie Brown if he grew up and got fatter. Oh my God. Look at the face there. It's kind of ludicrous. He looks like the moon, the man in the moon there. But then look at that great Daredevil panel. It's like a beautiful Daredevil, and then this. There's an interesting thing here where Daredevil's like, you make me sick taking advantage of this poor guy and his love for his wife. And he's like, oh yeah? When you found my wife Vanessa, you used her to blackmail me into doing your bidding. How is that different? Daredevil's a shocked look at his face and just like, don't, and he leaves. Now, Daredevil tells Ben. And Ben, of course, is crestfallen. He had his hopes so high for this. And he starts bemoaning to Daredevil, just like, the one story that would make me a millionaire is the one I can never publish, the one where I figured out that you're Matt Murdock. And Ben basically kind of leaves and says, Daredevil, I'm buying that house. I'm going to take that loan. Well, I don't care. So he goes out to Coney Island. I guess that's where he had his first date with his wife, Josie. Wait, her name's not Josie, I'm sorry. And he's just agonizing. Look at these panels of him wrestling with his conscience. And then the wife shows up. And she says, Daredevil told me everything. And she basically sets him straight. She says, you can't do this thing. Well, I don't mind living in that crappy apartment. I'd rather do that than have you sell your ethics down the river. That's the man I fell in love with. Love that picture of Ben, just looking at his wife. They hug, and he says, I'll find you another place, honey, I promise. She says, I believe you, Ben. You've kept every promise you ever made, every one that ever mattered. That's a fucking sweet little story. I really like that. And I hate to sound I'm congested because it almost sounds like I'm crying, but I'm not. I'm just very congested. That's why I have a bloody nose, because I've been blowing my nose so much. So guys, here's a very odd thing. This is the What If Elektra Had Lived Academy Edition. So number 35 of What If had the story. Every other story in it sucked. Like this one, for example. What if Yellow Jacket had died? I didn't want it polluting my collection. So I cut out everything else and filled it up with some other stuff. We start off with a Hannigan Austin cover, Ed Hannigan and Terry Austin. Pretty lackluster. Ed Hannigan usually did design pretty good covers. In fact, I think he did it at DC across the line for years. This is so boring, just the way Daredevil's just standing there like, ugh. Austin does his best. But guys, before we get into the story, so I just figured I'd use every page. So I had this Flash cover. Well, I had this beat-up Flash comic. And the insides are terrible. It's crappy writing, crappy art. But this beautiful Neil Adams cover. So I glued it in the inside. And I don't know what I did with that interior. Now, guys, here was this. This is from What If, number 35, 1982. So this is pretty soon after the issue where Daredevil was killed. Sorry, Elektra was killed. Now, guys, this is Frank Miller writing and penciling with, wait, let me double check that. Yes, with Terry Austin inking once again. This is even before that issue we just read. Hey, guys, look at this art here. This is some phenomenal stuff. Look at the coloring from Glynis Wine really kicks ass. So we see Frank Miller at Elektra's grave. And we also see the Watcher. Thankfully, we don't see the whole Watcher in his stupid uniform and his big dome head, because that would just be ludicrous. But he's holding an umbrella in the rain. And he, of course, just like he does in every issue, Uatu basically is the narrator. And he says, but what would have happened if Elektra didn't die? And now we see, this is the point of departure. What if Bullseye had not killed Elektra? And I guess when Bullseye was escaping jail, there was a guard on the wall who hesitated 1 second when he could have shot Bullseye. In this reality, he didn't hesitate, and he did kill Bullseye. Now we cut back to the original scene from number 181. And guys, I was too lazy to actually pull it off the shelf, but I'm pretty sure this is almost panel by panel recreation of that sequence. And, basically the sequence where Elektra threatens she's going to kill Franklin Nelson. Sorry, guys, I got to get a little tissue paper here. And then when he recognizes her, she can't do it. So we realize Elektra has a little bit of a conscience. And I know I just looked at this 2 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure this is almost exactly the same layouts, but it's got Terry Austin inks this time. Yeah, definitely that's the panel. So now we see the offices of the Kingpin. The guy who is in charge of all the assassins in the city, Slaughter. Look at that great drawing of Slaughter. That's amazing. He basically says, hey, you probably figured out either Elektra's betrayed you or failed. You need a better assassin. Look at the way Terry Austin inks the smoke. It's just so beautiful. Just this little side thing of just Kingpin cigar smoke. It's really nice. So Kingpin says, yeah, if you can kill Elektra, sorry guys, if you can kill Elektra, you're gonna get all the big contracts from now on. You'll be my chief man, my main man. Just all these scenes in the graveyard are just so beautifully colored and drawn. So now we see, just like in the comic, not like in the comic, because that's right after that incident, Bullseye shows up. So Foggy runs to Matt's place and says, I just saw your ex-girlfriend. She almost tried to kill me. She's some kind of assassin. Matt's about to tell him that he's Daredevil, but then he changes his mind. He says, just go, I'll take care of this. And he changes into Daredevil, his Daredevil costume. God, I love that panel right there. That is amazing stuff. And he's scouring the city looking for Elektra. Meanwhile, Elektra's running home. She knows there's a price on her head now. She's going to grab some things. and all these assassins come out of the woodwork and attack her. Now, remember I mentioned how they had that silly thing because the comics code where Elektra, when she puts her scythe through someone, the shirt pokes up, even though it doesn't make a hole in the shirt. At least this time there's a little blood stain. And they snuck that by the code. So it's a very short action scene, but this shit is amazing. Classic Miller fight choreography, where you see every almost second of the battle. When she runs outside, these guys all show up. Look how differently Austin inks Elektra. He really delineates how muscular she is. She's just like a steel trap. Yep, there we go again. It pierces a human rib cage, but not a sweater. And once again, the colors are excellent in this too. So some guy shoots Elektra in the arm. She kills him with her sai. Two other guys attack her. And look at all vertical panels. The Frank Miller way. So now we cut away to Daredevil coming back to his brownstone, and he sees a trail of blood in his house. He actually puts it to his lips. This almost looks like Barry Windsor Smith here with that Terry Austin inking, as does that. And in his bedroom. Oh, guys, this is this is an ad for Mr. Miracle with art by Marshall Rogers when he took over the comic. It was never in the actual comic. This ad is the only place you can see this art. So I was ripping out ads from comics anyway, and I figured, well, I should save this because it's a nice piece of Marshall Rogers art. And now we see Elektra on the bed, his bed. And he says, I have to take you in. And she's like, you know that if I go to prison, I'll die there. Do you want me to die, Matt? As they come close to each other. Now we cut away to the offices of Nelson and Murdoch. Apparently Matt's been AWOL for days. Becky, the secretary's trying to call him. Foggy's wondering what the hell's happened. He says, okay, I'm going to go to his house to figure out what's going on. He gets there. There's a real estate agent showing off Matt's place. And now we cut away to, it looks like some Greek island maybe. And Matt and Elektra are together and happy. And then the last page is the Watcher kind of consoling Matthew Murdoch, even though he can't hear him. But he's like, do not let this pain you. It is true that in some other reality, there's a woman named Elektra who's still alive, and you still love her, and you're happy. But still, do not grieve, for this reality still has you, its protector. So even if he could hear his words, it's pretty cold comfort. And then look at this great last panel. Wait, actually, is that the same as the first? Yeah, it's the same panel. Never mind. I don't know if they photostated it or redrew it. That's an impressive little, even if it's a dumb story. Just visually, it's stunning. The reason why I say it's a dumb story, I mean, it still is told with the panache of Frank Miller, his storytelling, but it's also just like this little piece of fan fiction, like, oh, even though it was a much better conclusion to have Elektra die, it made the story much more tragic and memorable. There were still so many fans who wrote in and said, no, they should end up together. It's like, why wouldn't Matt end up with a murderer? I mean, think about it. But then again, love is stupid. So he does seem, who knows? But I'm glad this exists. I'm glad I have it. So now I cut in. This is from I think it was called like the DC Holiday Superstar Special or something like that. It's from probably like 79. This might be from before Frank Miller even started on Daredevil in number 158. I could be wrong about that, but roughly around the same time. And this is the only story Frank Miller did of Batman, before Dark Knight Returns. When he was he never did Batman, even though he worked at DC for a little while when he was young. But this was a special, so they gave him a shot. Denny O'Neil writes this, Frank Miller pencils, and Steve Mitchell inks. Once again, go this wine-addled colors. And I gotta say, Frank Miller does such a good Batman. Because, we've only seen Dark Knight Returns is such a different thing. It's a different character. I love that. That's up there with like Marshall Rogers as far as depictions of Batman. So we see this Christmas party, and there's this underworld type guy, and his name's Matty, and he says, "Hey, I know you ordered some boat in the harbor, and I need to know why. I know you're up to something shady." So all these Batmans I really like. Just the swoop of the cape. He really has a way of drawing Batman, even back then when he's a youngster. Really nice layouts, too. We can see that he hasn't really developed that whole Daredevil layout, formula with the horizontal and the vertical. So basically he finds out that Maddie put the boat in the harbor for an old cellmate of his as a favor to an old cellmate named Boomer Katz. So now Batman's got his lead. Now Batman goes undercover. This is interesting. Batman will always dress up as like some kind of street person to get information. In this one, he's at this Christmas, like a Salvation Army Christmas dinner. And I've never seen Batman do this before, but his disguise is an old black man. So you can tell people that even Bruce Wayne, even Batman did blackface at one point. That's how prevalent it was. He gives $1,000 to the Salvation Army. So now Batman's found out where Boomer is. He's working as a department store Santa. We realize that Boomer is actually like tearing up, hanging out with the kids and being Santa Claus. I guess he's a softie, and it really touched him. When he goes outside, we see this sleazy guy. I think his name is Fatty. He says, "Did you do it, Boomer? Did you disable the security systems like we agreed?" I love that way he draws this guy. He's almost like Peter Lorre, sleazy. And he tells him, he says, "I couldn't do it. I felt so nice. Those kids made me feel so good. I just can't go back to being a criminal. I don't want to be that guy anymore." And he says, "Fine, we got to do it the hard way." So they put a gun to his back, say you forgot something. You got to get back in the store. So they muscle their way in. This is the manager of the store, Mr. Jackson. They ask for the receipts, and then Boomer fights back. He doesn't want this to happen, so he throws a box at one of the goons, and the other goon shoots him down right through the chest. Batman hears the shots, and he leaps into the department store, and he starts beating up the bad guys. Really like that panel, too. You can totally see the Steve Mitchell inks it looks very different, but also this is very early Frank Miller. All the early Frank Miller that we've seen so far, it's Klaus Janson was covering him up pretty much, So now, I guess Fatty has escaped into the night. Batman doesn't see any tracks. There's no sign of him. But then, I forgot to mention this because it's kind of corny. The star in the manger outside the department store was missing earlier. It's back. The missing star. And its rays are pointing here. And Batman sees the bad guy and knocks him out. So it's just kind of like the sappy Christmas ending where like the star of Bethlehem saves the day. And luckily Boomer's fine. I guess it was just his shoulder. So he's going to get to live. So this is from the same... Oh, no, it's not from the same issue. I think this is from a random issue of Adventure. And when I was a kid, I thought this was the most touching story ever. Rereading as an adult, I realized it's really dumb. And but I could care less because this is penciled and inked by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And as you can see, it's fucking gorgeous. Look at this art. So Dead Man is chilling in a park watching this old man feed the pigeons. Daredevil's, I'm sorry, did I say Daredevil? Dead Man is just loving the tranquility of this park. And, this old man is very peaceful and he's loving it. And if you guys don't know, Dead Man has the power. He's like a ghost. Nobody can hear him. He can't touch anything, but he can enter people's bodies and make them do stuff. Almost like meat puppets, So then all of a sudden this old guy, he's talking to the pigeons. And then he says, oh, man, the cancer's out of control. The pain's only going to get worse. I should just end it now. And he pulls a gun out of his pocket. Of course, Dead Man's like, what the fuck? So he's screaming at the old man, even though he knows he can't hear him. He's like, no, you got to hold on. Trust me. Being dead sucks. And he's about to do it. And then this doesn't make any sense at all. Guys, I'm totally sorry. I should have mentioned this is written by Len Wein, who should know better. And once again, colored by Glynis Wein. Very weird. She's all these random comics she has colored. So he says, nobody close enough for me to borrow. And he puts his hand in a pigeon, and the pigeon knocks the gun out of his hand. The old man sees it as a sign of God, so he says, maybe I shouldn't kill myself. Okay, I'll just go home. Now, why didn't he go into the old man's body and just stop him from pulling the trigger? It doesn't make any sense. It's so dumb, and it's just annoying. But Dead Man decides to follow him home. He gets home, his granddaughter greets him at the door. She's a little sweetie, and she says, where's your father? She's like, oh, he had to go out. He got a phone call. And he's like, oh, that bastard. I know he's up to his usual shenanigans. The father comes home. Turns out he's a drug dealer. And his father, the grandfather, he starts tearing into him. He's like, basically giving him the third degree. He's like, you got to stop this. You're killing innocent kids. He's like, get off my back, old man. How do you think I pay for this apartment? I got no choice. And besides, if I can't leave, they'll kill me. So the father calls him a coward, and he runs out the door. The whole time, Dead Man's watching all this and spouting off. He follows the son, and the son goes out to the dock, and all of a sudden he looks like Bewitched's husband here. Doesn't he look like one of the husbands of Bewitched? I can't remember if it's Dick York or Dick Sargent. And then the son says, you know what? Dad's right. Fuck this shit. I'm going to go tell the boss. I'm saying, I'm done with this. I can convince him. Man, look at this great drawing of the old man. So the old man, he gets his gun, and he says, I'm going to die anyway. I have one chance to redeem my son's soul, and I'm going to take it. So now Dead Man follows the son to the mob boss's houseboat. This is the guy, Mr. Caprese. And, of course, he says, you can't quit. You know too much about the operation. You better change your mind if you know what's good for your health. And then the old man busts in. And he basically says, you ruined my son's life and countless others. So I'm going to take yours. Dead Man says, no, old man. And he basically doesn't want to, he's like, I can't let you become a killer. And then now he enters the old man. Because he does that, the old man misses. Because, it kind of startles him when he takes over the body. There's a second readjustment. And then also because he seizes up, he can't jump out of the way when the mob boss, Caprese, shoots him back, which he does. So Dead Man pulls out of his body and says, what have I done? Just look at this great character. Just the character designs of, I'm sorry, guys, I can't think of the word, not character design, just the positioning of the bodies. He's so good at that. Garcia Lopez is good at everything. So the son freaks out. He starts attacking the goons, and he attacks the mob boss. Dead Man's an expert fighter, so he says, I'll go into him, and then he'll be able to fight these guys better, which he does. He knows all this kind of judo. And then, as a kid, I didn't even think this ending was that bad. This ending is ridiculous. So Caprese says, stay back or I'll blow you away. And then Dead Man, through the son's lips, says, you'd better kill me with the first shot. It's over. Those gunshots will bring the cops here. There's no way out for you. Your prints will be all over the gun. And so he says, You're wrong, dear boy. There's always a way out if a man has the courage to take it. And he blows his own brains out. This doesn't make any sense. I've never seen any movie or story about a mob boss who did this because they don't have to. He could have killed him easily. And with his connections, first he could have ran before the cops even got there, so they wouldn't even find his gun with his prints on it. He's a mob boss, so he's probably got judges in his pocket and police chiefs. It's so ridiculous, this ending. That just because he says, the cops are on their way. Oh, I better kill myself. So now Dead Man leaves the son's body. I guess the father is still, the old man is still alive. And basically says, his last words are I'm glad, that I'm dying because I got to save your life. And of course the son vows to do his time and take care of the daughter. And once he gets out, he's going to go straight. And he says he's gone. And then this is the last panel, just Dead Man raging into the sky, going, ah! And so it goes. Oh, Len Wein. For a guy who's written some good comics in your life, he also writes some really shitty panels. It's kind of weird. So here's another little bonus tip-in thing. I guess there was an issue of Marvel Comics Presents, which had this unused cover from the Weapon X story that Barry Windsor Smith created, but they got Sam Keith to draw one of the covers. I guess Barry Windsor Smith probably said, fuck you, I want to do all the covers, which he did. Beautiful Sam Keith drawing, though. I hope they've used this somewhere, colored it, used it. So there you go, guys. Kind of a weird little Academy edition, just random odds and sods. But, 2/3 of it's Frank Miller, so I guess it has some kind of connectivity to it. So there you go, guys. Daredevil 191, 192, and the What If Academy Edition. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at these today. So next time we're going full-on post-Frank Miller. Of course, we're going to come back to Frank Miller because he comes back to Daredevil eventually. But to be honest, I don't know if I'll like these comics still. I haven't read them in 20 years. So maybe we won't be coming back with those non-Frank Miller comics, and I'll just skip ahead to Frank Miller's return. But we'll see. So hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.